Hello, everybody, and welcome to the DRIVE35 Scale Up Fund applicant briefing. This applicant briefing is for drawdown 4 onwards, as there was a previous competition on IFS that handled the first 3 drawdowns, and I will talk about this in just a moment. But this is the briefing for the new competition on IFS that opened on the 17th of June. So my name is James Rayner, and I am the competition manager that looks after the DRIVE35 competitions at Innovate UK, including this one. And also we will be joined by Alex Woods and Ruby Akhtar via a recording that they have done, which I will play for you in a minute, that runs through the competition summary and scope for this competition. So this is the agenda for today's briefing. So I will cover the key dates. Alex and Ruby will then talk about the competition summary and scope. And then I will take you through the eligibility criteria, the innovation funding service, our funding rules, how we will assess your application, the use of AI, and the additional supports that is available to you. So the key dates then, this competition opened on the 17th of June, and the submission deadline for the 4th drawdown of the Scale Up Fund competition is on the 5th of August 2026, with applicants being informed of funding decisions by the 4th of November 2026. For further drawdowns from drawdown 5 onwards, please refer to the dates in IFS, as these will be uploaded there in due course. And projects are to start from the 1st of March 2027. And this is for the 4th drawdown. And then for future drawdowns, the dates will be available on IFS. So now Ruby and Alex will take you through the competition summary and scope for this competition.
Hello, and a warm welcome from myself, Alex, and my colleague Ruby from the APC to this Scale Up briefing. So first of all, just to introduce the DRIVE35 programme, which stands for Driving Research and Investment in Vehicle Electrification. This really is a groundbreaking £4 billion programme that was launched through the Industrial Strategy and Advanced Manufacturing Sector Plan. And the £4 billion fund covers 3 strategic funding priorities. So firstly, supporting innovation with our concept to late stage research and development programme, and also enabling transformation, which is looking at industrial deployment at scale, and for the first time includes a vehicle assembly within that programme. And really bridging the gap between that innovation and the industrialization at scale through the transformation program, we are now focusing really heavily on accelerating scale up in between, because we understand that having that innovative idea, an opportunity, solving a real customer problem, and then reaching industrialization at scale is a very difficult navigation point to make. So the Scale Up program is really looking at how we can accelerate the adoption and manufacturing capabilities for those technologies. So the Scale Up program fits within those 3 strategic funding areas, as I mentioned. And here we just talk about some of the products that are within each of those buckets. So with innovation, we have Mobilize, which is our accelerator program. Demonstrate, which looks for research and development programs around getting demonstrators that you can take to customers to secure commercial orders and gain commercial traction. And then Collaborate, which is our late stage research and development program, looking at bringing things to that industrialization ready point. And then with the Scale Up Fund, which is what we're here to talk about today mainly, and that is around 2 areas. So the feasibility studies for Scale Up really are looking at enabling development of business cases to establish manufacturing facilities in the UK. And then the main Scale Up Fund, which is the context for this program, which is around scaling up manufacturing capability of eligible zero-emission vehicle technologies and achieving substantial private co-investment into the scale-up of the supply chain for zero-emission vehicle technologies. And I'm now going to talk a little bit more about an overview of the scale-up fund itself. So the scale-up fund, really, it's been set up to support the development of manufacturing process and facilities for pilot line or demonstration lines, which we'll define a bit later in the presentation. But also note that industrial scale facilities are not in scope of this competition. They are covered by the transformation pillar, as I mentioned earlier. So a key part of this competition is the requirement to secure co-investment for your scale-up project. So if the investment is already available, then the project can start immediately as soon as the award's made. However, the award of the grant can also be used to support the applicant in raising the co-investment required for the scale-up project. So really that's bridging that innovation and transformation gap, as I mentioned earlier. So we cannot make that offer, unfortunately, open-ended. So the co-investment raise must be completed within 9 months of the award. Under exceptional circumstances, if the applicant is very close to completing, a short extension to that for up to an additional 3 months may be permitted. But really, we want to make sure that you can use the grant offer to help you go out and get that additional investment that's required to be able to scale up your facilities. Okay, so I said that I would define exactly what we mean by a pilot line, low volume, and a demonstration mid-volume line. So we understand that the route to scaling up production requires distinct phases of technology and manufacturing development. This requires the validation of development at incremental manufacturing scale, and so to support this, businesses must create pilot scale, demonstration scale, and industrial scale manufacturing facilities. The scope of the scale-up fund is shown in the red box. It supports pilot line, low volume, and demonstration line, as it said, mid-volume, first of a kind manufacturing facilities and processes. We would expect these facilities to have a high level of flexibility supporting process development and lower manufacturing volumes. Again, as I mentioned earlier, funding for the industrial and high volume facilities remains part of the ATF, the transformation competition. So one difference between scale-up fund and other APC competitions is that we don't have a budget limit for each drawdown that we will make. We will continue to draw down applications approximately every 3 months until the competition fund limit is reached. So the scale-up fund allows projects to apply for between £2.5 million and £20 million in grant funding, with a minimum of £5 million eligible project costs. This is to support the development of the pilot scale or demonstration scale facilities. The award will be up to 50% grant, and if you are a it'll be up to 50% grant if you are a micro, small or medium-sized organisation, and up to 30% if you are a large organisation. Single applicants or consortia are allowed. However, we strongly recommend, if you're considering an application as a consortia, in fact, also if you are a single applicant, then you talk with the APC business development team, and Ruby will talk a bit about that later. Just to reiterate that the award can be used to help secure the necessary co-investment within a 9-month period of the award being made. So in that 9-month period, you will also be allocated some of that grant, a proportion of that grant. So the lower of £1 million or 10% of your total grant that can be used within that 9-month period and claimed against eligible project spend to allow you to undertake some key project activities. Okay, here's a simple graphic just to summarise the outcomes of if a project is awarded in a scale-up grant. So if the co-investment's already in place and it's evidenced, then you would take the upper path through this flowchart. The project can essentially proceed once the grant offer letter is approved, like any other sort of APC innovation competition. However, if the grant award is being used to support investment raise, co-investment for that initial 9-month period, then you'll be allocated a grant of £1 million or 10%, the lower of those two, and that can be claimed against eligible project spend. But within 9 months of that award being made, or once the co-investment has been raised, if that comes sooner, then a gateway review will be held with Department for Business and Trade and other key stakeholders to confirm that the project can proceed. If the applicant has failed to raise the investment within the 9-month period, then there will be a formal notice of withdrawal of the award, and the project would stop at that point. So the routes through there. Okay, and into a bit of a more detailed flow chart now of kind of high level activities. The key steps have been highlighted in the boxes here. So the current status is that this competition is open. The competition requirement is for a panel review interview and economic monitoring, which will take place alongside the assessment process. Once the award is made, as I said earlier, the co-investment is in place, the project can start straight away. And then, as we talked about, within that 9-month period, if you raise that co-investment during that 9-month period, we'll enter into a funding gateway review. And if that is successful, then you'll be able to start the project. If you can't raise the investment within that period, then there will be a formal notification for the project to stop and close. An additional point just relating to the economic monitoring is that it is understood that in some cases CO2 equivalents may be difficult to demonstrate in the response. So you can complete that section. If you can complete the section, it might enhance your application. However, you won't be scored down if you can't answer that section of your economic monitoring. But again, please come and speak to the APC colleagues who will be able to support you in the application process, and we can make all of that clear upfront and well ahead of submission. Okay, just on to an overview of the project specific eligibility. So we're looking for scale in the UK auto sector. However, adjacent exploitation is allowed, especially where that strengthens your route to market or volume and unit economics. Single applications or consortia are allowed. Projects have to work within the UK and provide a significant justification for any overseas activities. We're looking for projects to exploit the outcomes in the UK, i.e. build the facility within the UK, but the facilities can definitely export to outside the UK as well as their exploitation route. Co-investment grant funding needs to be between 2.5 million and 20 million, as I said, with a maximum 30% grant funding for large organisations and 50% for small, medium and micro enterprises. There is also a 3.5% industrial contribution of the grant received to APC UK. In terms of impacts and outcomes, what we're looking for from this competition, so we're looking for those projects that will provide growth in capacity and capability while improving productivity, capability and competitiveness within your business, but also within the wider UK supply chain. We're looking for projects that align with the strategic aims of DRIVE35 programme, again in the context of the industrial strategy and advanced manufacturing sector plans. We're looking for facility investment, driving creation or safeguarding of jobs, and increased sales that will result in economic benefits for the UK. At the end of the project, we're expecting to see long-lasting impacts benefiting the UK. Additionally, a requirement is for applicants to hold an event after the project completion to demonstrate the outcomes and deliverables of the projects to key stakeholders. So what does a strong application look like? We've highlighted some of the key expectations within an application for the Scale Up Fund. It certainly doesn't cover everything, but these are some areas that we think are really important. So around demonstrating your business capability, having a strong value proposition, As this is a manufacturing scale-up competition, then demonstration of TRL6, MRL5 at the start of the project is really important. We want businesses to scale up, not necessarily to be doing all of the early stage development in these programs. So we're looking for you to make sure that understanding of the market and competition, a commercial plan that supports the product scale up, a very clear and defined plan to deliver with key milestones very well understood, a plan to support the operational growth both within the business and the supply chain, so how will both grow and scale, a very clear financial business case, including readiness for the investment and things like internal rate of return, and finally, what is the impact of the project to the overall business? In terms of scope for the fund itself, so the creation and/or conversion of the manufacturing facilities required for zero emission vehicle technologies, we do know is a very high cost. So even pilot scale facilities can be in the tens of millions. Demonstration lines can cost up to 100 million or greater, and facilities at industrial scale are very certainly in the billions. So the scale-up fund really is there to help support companies with the development of that manufacturing readiness. And so some important examples from this slide, particularly of in-scope activities, really revolve around looking for projects to consider as activities within scope, the development required for manufacturing readiness, and to support design for manufacture as the product moves from that lab scale to pilot and demonstration scale. So that's all well within scope. A prototype design might not be efficiently manufactured at the intended volumes, so also consider any product development, verification or validation requirements required as part of the scale up, either for the applicant or for the supply chain. So an example that we use often on this one is an example might be components that are machined from solid for a prototype phase, but could be machine casting, die casting to support the pilot or demonstration levels, and that kind of change would require validating. So it's just making sure that you include all the aspects that go along with making sure that that is a valid scale facility on completion. Okay, so then the technologies that are formally in scope within a scale-up project. So the fund aims to support the manufacturing scale-up of strategically important technologies for onboard vehicle applications and in one or more of these following areas. So electrical energy storage, electric machines and associated driveline, power electronics, internal combustion engines for off-road applications, lightweighting, fuel cell systems, hydrogen vehicle storage and management systems. And then we also include in here zero emission vehicle assembly. And that's the technologies that are in scope. But the kind of the important bit here is that within each of those technologies that we've highlighted as in scope on the last slide, projects can include all of these different parts of the process along which those technologies are included. So that can include the upstream supply chain for all of those technologies. So the raw materials, component manufacturing, sub-assembly manufacturing, the circularity and design for disassembly. So effectively the whole life cycle of those technologies is within scope. And then the deployment, but importantly here, not the principal development of the technologies to enable productivity and cost competitiveness. So this is the deployment of those technologies in the scale-up facility. So digital transformation, manufacturing process decarbonisation and lean manufacturing techniques as well. Okay, here we have a long list of projects that we won't fund. So these are the things that are specifically out of scope for the competition. So just leave those on the screen for a second, and please make note of all of those. again, on this slide, particularly if you think where your project or you have require some clarity on any of these, again, please come and speak to the APC teams. We'll be able to help you navigate through that process. Okay, and as a final point here from myself, there will be a portfolio approach taken to the end selection. So we want to make sure that we're funding a variety of projects across different technologies, vehicle applications, different markets, technological maturities, and organizational sizes. These are all aligned to policy and regulatory deadlines for enabling automotive transformation. And as such, the funded projects may be determined by the fit of that particular project to the competition portfolio. And so this is listed out in the scope of the competition, and we call that the portfolio approach. So now I'll hand over to my colleague Ruby, who's going to talk you through some of the application questions and how to get prepared for your applications.
Thank you, Alex. Hi, my name is Ruby Akhtar. I'm one of the business development managers here at the APC in Zenzik. Today, I'm going to run through the application questions for Scale Up Drawdown 4. As a quick overview, these are the questions. Question number 1 to question number 8 are not scored, however, provide information for around the business. And question 9 onwards are scored questions. If you have taken part in previous Scale Up Drawdown competitions, you'll note that the questions have reduced from 33 questions to 28 questions. So let's start with the questions themselves. The first set of questions really look to address the business strategy. So business capability, product and process, market and commercial plan. Business capability looks at the leadership team delivering the scale-up project. It looks at the project delivery team and how the operational team sits alongside the engineering, manufacturing and other business functions and how the scale-up plan will be delivered. It also looks at the risks associated with the team and what is required to deliver the scale-up project. Organizational readiness looks at the people. So if you are a new organization, in delivering a scale-up project, you may look at key appointments which are required to be made in order to deliver the program. It looks at any key collaborators, subcontractors, and their roles and responsibilities for the project itself. Moving on to product and processes. This now looks at the key focus areas, what the value proposition is, what the unique strengths are associated with the product or process, and how the unit economics has been put together and the cost points associated with the product or process. We then move on to giving the assessors an idea of the product maturity. What we want to understand here is the level of maturity, the TRL levels of the product and the MRL levels before and after the scale-up program will be in place. As we said, there's an eligibility criteria around the TRL and MRLs. So really just giving a good background on what your product is and process is and how this scale-up program will then deliver manufacturing readiness level to scale. And with all of this, we expect to see a level of evidence as part of the supporting documents. Moving on to the market opportunity and the competitive environment. Here, what we want to understand is your position in the market, understanding your timings around how you will enter the market and the wider opportunities within that market itself, understanding, to provide an understanding to the assessors of the wider competitive market and any early adopters as part of this scale-up process. Commercialization plan, this then looks at your 10-year sales projections. Your sales ambitions should include realistic sales forecasts showing early traction and customer takeoff, and providing evidence to support this, as well as your roadmap to beyond this project and what this will provide, having a commercial business plan which evolves from a scale up all the way up to volume manufacturing. Moving on to the next set of questions, which is more project focus. So this looks at the project itself, manufacturing and supply chain plan, and the financial plan to deliver the co-investment which is required for this project program. So the manufacturing growth plan for the project. So the objective of this is really to understand what the clear objectives are, how the commercial and quality control processes feed into that delivery plan, and how that all fits in. And we would expect to see a clear delivery plan and with critical paths included. As well as this, we want to understand the risks. And as part of this funding application, we want you to have a clear view on the risks. It's really important that there is a risk register in place addressing all of the risks associated with the program. So this is including any commercial, environmental, technical, managerial risks, and all of those elements covered with a clear mitigation plan. Project costs and justification. Again, what we require is a sensible project budget, making sure that the minimum grant is being requested, a clear explanation of the assumptions, and understanding where the subcontractor costs are, whether they are reasonable and justified, and then finally understanding the financial breakdown for each financial year over the course of the project life, and the grant required each year. Moving on to manufacturing and supply chain plan. This again looks at a clear breakdown of the operational plans and manufacturing plans, understanding your position in your current supply chain, and really providing a view on what the existing relationships are in that supply chain, the tier ones, tier twos, where there are gaps in the supply chain, and understanding really that end-to-end process from materials coming in all the way up to distribution. We then move on to the finance plan. Now, this is a key requirement for the application, understanding the co-investment piece, the 2-to-1 ratio of finance to grant. What we want to see is that there is a clear plan to have the investment for the project. There is a 9 to 12 month period where you are able to go out and to go out and attract that investment after the grant is awarded. And what we want to see is how you would deliver this, understand how you are framing this in terms of a bigger picture. So what does this unlock? The wider opportunities and the wider investment associated with the program. The finance, the financial breakdown, the financial business case is formatted to show a 10-year forecast. And what we want to understand is your cash flow, any sensitivity analysis of the scenarios which may be in play, and an overall justification of the investment. We then move on to the economic appraisal questions, and these questions support the value for money workbook, which is downloaded as part of this application. In these questions, what we expect to see is a justification around the costs. The value for money assessment is carried out by the economists at Business and Trade. The economists from Department of Business and Trade. And this really determines the project value based on the cost benefit analysis. Now, that analysis looks at how we are delivering jobs, CO2 savings, R&D spillovers, etc. The calculations allow us to quantify the benefits as well as provide a narrative and supporting documents as part of the application. So these are really important. Be clear with the narrative, have a justification around the assumptions and working outs that you have provided, as well as provide evidence where possible. We then move on to additionality and reason for funding. This is now looking at what funding is needed and why it is needed. So understanding the minimum grant request, as well as what happens in the absence of funding. So this is providing your counterfactuals should this funding not be available to you. Again, be clear with the narrative, provide evidence wherever possible with all of these questions. There is a tab in each tab, there is guidance at the bottom of each sheet, providing you more information on what is required in each section. Any questions regarding the guidance, please do reach out to myself and the team. We are here to help. We have an email address here on screen, info@apcuk.co.uk. And please do reach out, please talk to us, and we will help wherever possible. And we wish you best of luck with your application. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening.
Okay, so now we are going to talk through the eligibility criteria for this competition. So your project must be either a single applicant application or a consortia-led, must have a total grant funding request of between £2.5 million and £20 million, must have total eligible costs of at least £5 million. It must last for at least 12 months, including an initial period where you can raise the match funding before your project starts, as was covered in Alex and Ruby's section. It must start from the 1st of March 2027 and end by the 31st of March 2030. To lead a project, your organisation must be a UK registered business of any size, and that also applies if you are a single applicant. So your organisation must be a UK registered business of any size. And you can find more information on the different types of organisation in our funding rules that is linked on this slide, and the slides will be available on IFS alongside this recording. So for this competition, obviously your project can be collaborative, and in all collaborative projects, there must be at least 2 grant claiming partners and evidence of an effective collaboration, meaning that one partner must not account for more than 70% of the total costs. To collaborate with the lead, your organisation must be one of the following UK registered businesses of any size, academic institution, charity, not-for-profit, public sector organisation, or research and technology organisation. Your project can include non-UK partners, including partners based in the EU who bring their own funding. Non-UK partners are permitted to carry out project work from within their home countries and exploit results overseas. Their costs will count towards the total eligible project costs, but obviously they cannot claim any funding. Subcontractors are allowed in this competition, and they can be from anywhere in the UK, and you must select them through your usual procurement process. You can use subcontractors from overseas, but you must make the case in your application as to why you cannot use subcontractors from within the UK. You must provide a detailed rationale, evidence of the potential UK contractors that you approached and the reasons why they were unable to work with you. And also, we will not accept a cheaper cost as a sufficient reason to use an overseas subcontractor. And all subcontractor costs must be justified and appropriate to the total project costs. A business can lead or collaborate on any number of applications, and an academic institution, research and technology organisation, charity, not-for-profit, or public sector organisation can collaborate on any number of applications. This competition does allow you to submit a previously submitted application, and the details of what Innovate UK classifies as a previously submitted application or not are available on this slide, so please do review them in the slides on IFS after this briefing. So now we'll take a look at how you'll start and complete your application within IFS. So when you start an application on the Innovation Funding Service, the first step is creating an account. We've made this a bit simpler, so you'll begin by choosing the organisation type that best describes you using the radio buttons. Once you've selected that, you'll be asked to enter your organisation name and pick it from the list. If you're a business or a research organisation, you'll use the Companies House lookup so we can capture your company number. And this helps us with our eligibility checks later on if your application is successful. For academic institutions, it's even easier. Just type your organisation name and select it from the list that appears. And finally, if your organisation hasn't been registered yet, that's absolutely fine. You can enter your details manually, but just remember, if your application is successful, you'll need to formally register your organisation before we can issue your grant offer. Failure to register could result in an offer of funding being withdrawn. And this is because to be eligible as a UK registered business, you must have a Companies House registration number. For further information, please review our general guidance or reach out to our customer support team. You'll be asked a series of unscored questions initially, which are available on the screen for you now, and then it will lead into the scored application questions. And this is how we rank your application to determine whether or not it is fundable. Now, subject to certain criteria, UK applicants are legally required to tell the government about acquisitions of certain entities in 17 areas of the economy called notifiable acquisitions. More information can be found via the link on the slide. The 17 areas are as described on the slide, and if you're uncertain about whether an acquisition is notifiable, you may contact the government on investment.screening@cabinetoffice.gov.uk to seek their view, or you can also get legal advice from your own sources. Now, in response to this need, we have included 2 unscored questions in the application form, which I will cover with you in a second. Now, you will need to let Innovate UK know if the strategic export controls apply to the information within your application so that we can ensure that we do not share this with any of our assessors who may be based outside of the UK. You should also consider if you'll need a license to work with international partners or contractors during or after the project. If you do need a license to export information outside the UK, then you should also be mindful of what you share with international partners or contractors. Now, onto those 2 questions that I just mentioned. So in the first additional unscored question, you're asked about whether your work involves any international collaboration or engagement. If yes, you must provide details of any expected international collaboration, and you must include a list of the names and countries that any international project participants are based in. This must also include details of any subcontractors or service providers. If your proposed work does not involve international collaboration or engagement, your answer must also confirm this. The second question, as shown here on the slide, asks you to explain if your proposed project work relates to UKRI's trusted research and innovation principles as per the bullets on the slide. As with all of our briefings, we will be uploading the slides shared today to IFS to have the opportunity to review the criteria around export controls via the links on the slides. And as per the previous slides, please remember, if there is any uncertainty about whether an acquisition is notifiable, you may contact the government on investment.screening@cabinetoffice.gov.uk to seek their view, or you can get legal advice from your own sources. Now, these are the categories that you'll be asked to split out your project costs into in the finance section of the application. The application finances video will provide further instructions on how to complete each of these sections, including how academics include their finances. There's also guidance within each category on IFS. In your project finances, there are 4 categories, and each organisation within an application must complete their own finance information. So these categories are your project costs, which is where you add in your costs by category, your project location, which is where you enter the postcode for where most of the project work will take place, your organisation, which is where you add in the details of your organisation, including size, turnover, and number of employees, as is applicable, The size that a business declares here, along with any research category, if applicable, is what IFS will use to calculate your funding level. And finally, your funding, which is where you must indicate if you are requesting grant funding with a yes or a no, and declare any funding that you have received previously for the exact same project activities, as you cannot receive public funding for the same activities twice. As the lead applicant, you must check that your finances are complete and correct. Your total costs and funding request must be in accordance with the competition's eligibility criteria. Be careful to note the difference between the cost of your project and the amount of grant that you are requesting. For collaborative applications, IFS will highlight to the lead applicant any partners who have outstanding project finances to complete. All finances must be included in the application before the lead applicant can submit. IFS will also check that your research participation costs are within the required limits, which are no more than 30% of the total project costs. Before you can submit your application, all organisations within an application must agree to the terms and conditions, and IFS will not let you submit if these are still outstanding. We also want to stress how important it is for you to submit your application as early as possible. Our customer support services team can help resolve any issues that you might have before submitting, but only if they are contacted in good time before the deadline. The lead applicant carries the responsibility of ensuring that all partners in the application, if applicable, have completed their assigned sections and accepted their T's and C's. This chart shows some of our recent competitions with the red bar denoting all submissions in the last 3 hours before closing. We don't allow extensions, so if you leave it too late and then experience technical issues, we may not be able to help you in time and you won't be able to submit. If you need to edit your application after it's been submitted, this is possible before the submission deadline. First, you need to reopen your application, and on your IFS dashboard, you'll see the option to reopen as shown in the slide. The option to reopen is also visible on your application status page. Once reopened, you can make changes to your application, but when you've finished, please remember to resubmit before the deadline. Click on the green Review and Submit button, review your application once more, and then click the final Submit button. If you reopen your application and do not resubmit it, we will not accept it. And please note, as per the previous slide, we can monitor site usage. When preparing your application, it's important that I share with you some things that you should consider if you're planning to use AI to support you. Innovate UK does not endorse nor oppose the use of AI technology. However, we are seeing an increase in the use of AI in applications. It's necessary that you do your own research as to whether this is the right tool for you and consider the pros and cons of using this technology. If you do use it, Innovate UK does not accept any responsibility for any impact on your idea. Whilst AI offers many benefits, it's important that you're aware that you're potentially sharing your idea with the world. With the JES system no longer being supported, we have enhanced IFS to reflect how you enter academic costs with the new track method. And we hope that you find this to be much simpler and a more intuitive way of doing things. So directly incurred costs are specific to the project and include staff time, including research assistants and dedicated technicians, goods and services used in the project. Directly allocated costs are one shared between activities and projects and are charged on the basis of estimates. They include things such as investigators' time and infrastructure technicians' time. Indirect costs are not directly related to a project or activity, but are a necessary part of it, and they can include central services, libraries, support staff in academic departments, and a level of return to contribute to the institution's future development. There is also a mandatory requirement to upload a document detailing the costs that must be done by the academic institution, and this must be done in a PDF format and approved by their research office. So now I'm going to talk through some of the funding rules and how your grant would be awarded should you be successful. So firstly, you're unable to claim funding if you are an overseas organisation. The organisation is set up with a branch. You are a collaboration with no formal structure of ownership or control, or you are based in a crown dependency such as Jersey, Guernsey, or the Isle of Man. And for some of these, your company number would start with an FC, BR, an ML, or a JE. There are some instances where we would not be able to award you any funding, and this could be if you have an outstanding final claim or have been asked to supply an independent accountant report on a live Innovate UK project but have not supplied it. In this case, you will not be eligible to apply to this competition as a lead or a partner organisation. We will also not award you any further funding if you've not made substantial effort to exploit a previous award or have failed to comply with the grant's terms and conditions. We award our grants under the UK subsidy control regime, which incorporates various agreements and frameworks, which are detailed on the slide here. So please do check these out after you've watched this recording. And this slide shows the definition of a subsidy. So Innovate UK is unable to award funding to organisations that are considered to be in financial difficulty. All organisations that are awarded funding are subjected to financial viability and eligibility checks. If you're an applicant who's conducting activities that will affect the trade of goods and/or electricity between Northern Ireland and the EU, as envisaged by Article 10 of the Windsor Framework, then your grant will be awarded under the European Commission's state aid rules. In order to be eligible to receive state aid, you must pass the Undertakings in Difficulty test. This only applies to limited liability companies that are more than 3 years old, and if you have a parent company, the test can be performed on your parent or holding company. If you're successful in the competition, we will apply this test as part of our viability checks. If you're unsure of whether you're eligible to receive state aid, please seek legal advice, or you can find further information on our website. You can also contact our customer support services team if you have any questions. So now we're going to talk about how we will assess your applications. So to help you understand what happens after you've submitted your application, Innovate UK have produced a series of videos, and I've placed the link to the playlist on this slide. We won't run through them now, but please do watch them at your leisure. You'll receive a notification explaining next steps if you pass the technical assessment, where you will then proceed to project setup in IFS. All 8 steps of project setup are detailed in your notification, and you must complete them within a maximum of 90 calendar days. Please be patient during this stage, as assigning monitoring officers and getting finance checks completed can take several weeks. Please ensure you share the T's and C's with your legal team at the earliest possible opportunity. Once notified, you'll have 30 calendar days to do this. And the final step will be to sign and return your grant offer letter. We must first approve it, and then you will get a go live email confirming that you can start your project. Your project will always have a start date of the 1st of the month, and you can only claim for costs incurred and paid for after your project has started. Now, this is how you get paid. So grants are claimed and paid out following authorisation, quarterly in arrears. Organisations being funded at less than 100% will need to provide evidence that they will have funding available to meet their share of the costs. You can only claim for costs incurred between your project start and end date, and grants can only be paid into an approved UK bank account. So these are the lists of banks that we have approved to pay our grants into. Please note that we carry out regular reviews of authorised accounts to ensure they may remain compliant with FCA and PRA standards, and we may remove any organisation from the list that does not meet these standards. Before we end, I want to touch on the additional support that's available from Innovate UK. So reasonable adjustments. So at Innovate UK, we want all of our competitions to be accessible to everyone. So if you have a disability or a long-term condition that might make the application process tricky, we can put support in place to help remove those barriers. If you think you need any adjustments, you can get in touch with us at any time. We do recommend reaching out about 15 working days before the competition closes, just so we have enough time to arrange the right support for you. And all the contact details are on the slide, so please do not hesitate to use them. If you do request a reasonable adjustment, there's a bit of information that we'll need so we can help you properly. Initially, we require your name, organisation, email and phone number, and which competition you're applying to. If you've already started an application, your application number is really helpful too. We'll also need your consent to share your details with the Innovate UK Business Connect. They can only support you once our customer support team has referred you, so that consent is very important. And there's a link on the slide with more detail if you want to read through the process later. In terms of the kinds of adjustments that we can offer, here are some examples, but this list is not exhaustive. So depending on what you need, we can help with things like proofreading, clarifying language, providing helpful resources, linking you up with experts, or supporting with things like time management or note-taking. It's all about making sure the application process itself isn't a barrier for you. And remember, this is all tailored to the individual, so if you're not sure what you need, please contact the customer support team. It's also important to be clear about what reasonable adjustments cannot cover. These adjustments are there to level the playing field, not to influence your application content or give you an advantage. So we can't offer things like deadline extensions, help choosing which competition to apply for, developing your idea, advising whether it's in scope, providing financial advice, or helping with research. This support is there to give you access and navigate the process, not to shape the application itself. I'd now like to touch on the Innovate UK Business Growth Team. So the Innovate UK Business Growth Team, they support ambitious, innovation-focused businesses that have won an Innovate UK competition and are growing strongly or have high growth potential, and they may be contacted about support after being awarded a grant offer letter. They must be registered at Companies House with up to 250 employees, and it is also aimed at management teams motivated to engage fully and help achieve growth milestones. The NSCS has also created a free cyber action toolkit that gives clear, bite-sized actions to protect small businesses, their money, and reputation from cybercrime. Search the NCSC Cyber Toolkit or click on the link on the slide to find out more. Innovate UK Business Growth Support is fully funded and will be offered to all successful UK-based SME competition applicants following the start of their projects. It's also available to unsuccessful applicants, and you can find more about the service or how to access it via the inquiry line on the screen now or on their website. And here we have some useful links to help and provide support to you during the application process and beyond. We highly recommend that you read our general guidance and check out Business Connect's Good Application Guide. If you need some help with pulling together your collaboration agreement, then please do check out the Lambert Toolkit. We cannot otherwise advise you on how to put this together. We've also provided some other useful links to keep you updated and in touch with all of the opportunities that are available. And finally, please note the contact details for our customer support services team. So that is 0300 321 4357, with lines being open Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. till 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. till 5 p.m. And you can find the email address as well as links to Innovate UK, Innovate UK Business Connect, and Innovate UK Business Growth's websites on the screen. So thank you very much for watching through this briefing recording. We very much look forward to your application and wish you the best of luck.